Hello, you're listening to Everyday Encouragement, Timeless Truths for Today, a weekly podcast designed to bring you snippets of encouragement to help you as you go about your day. I'm Jenny Guy, your host. Maybe you're like me, and sometimes you want to have a visible token to encourage you as you go on your faith journey. I found a rather unusual token recently during one of my daily walks. The faith symbol was a manhole cover. In today's episode, I'll share the lesson I got from really paying attention to the manhole covers on my path. Let's get started. I'd like to share with you something that occurred to me during one of my walks. It happened at a time when I really needed some encouragement. I admit that what I observed that day may seem fanciful or even far-fetched. I'm sharing it now, hoping that despite its imaginative nature, my observation will encourage you too. When I'm on my exercise game, I walk along a path that leads from my house to a creek approximately 1.5 miles away. I stop and study the creek for any changes and then walk back along the path to my house. The path is covered by an old sidewalk. There are portions that are cracked, buckling, even missing. I can't just casually walk along without looking where I'm stepping. There are also a lot of manhole covers on the sidewalk. One day, I decided to examine them as I walked to the creek. I counted 15 of them. Some were spaced closely together, while others had a block or more between them. They were all made by one company. To my surprise and great excitement, the company's name was East Jordan Iron Works. Why was I so excited by that discovery? Well, I had been studying the Exodus story, so I knew that not all of Israel crossed the Jordan River into the promised land of Canaan. In fact, 2.5 of the 12 tribes decided to stay, are you ready for this? On the east side of the Jordan River. My excitement grew when I discovered that one of the covers was decorated by a fish. True, it was the engraving of a real fish and not the stylized symbol of Christianity that is seen on bumper stickers and elsewhere. But come on, how many times in life will you find a series of manhole covers where one of them is decorated with a fish and all carry the name of East Jordan? Instantly, the manhole covers were transformed in my mind. No longer were they merely protective covers installed by the county to keep unwary walkers from falling into deep holes. The manhole covers had become a metaphor for what I was learning about God and walking in faith. My old cracked sidewalk was now a path of faith whose markers were those manhole covers. I chose to extend my metaphor a little bit more by deciding that the covers themselves represented various faith challenges, and the spaces between them stood for the length of time the challenges lasted. For example, some faith tests come one right after the other and are over fairly quickly. Those trials were represented by the manhole covers that were close together. On the other hand, some faith challenges seem to go on, and we wonder if they will ever come to an end. The manhole covers a block or more apart represented those longer trials. Now that you understand my faith metaphor and hopefully you can picture it in your mind, let me go back to the Exodus story and how it applies to what I'm learning about walking in faith. The book of Exodus in the Old Testament records the story of the Israelites after they were freed from slavery in Egypt. It details their transformation from slaves into free people capable of living in their own land. That transformation didn't happen instantly, though. It took 40 years of wandering in the desert for 12 independent tribes to become an organized, unified nation. The Jordan River was a critical stop in their journey, for it marked the entrance to Canaan, the land God had promised to Israel over 400 years before. However, Canaan was already occupied. Crossing the Jordan meant fighting battles of faith, not once, not twice, but over and over until all of the land had been claimed and settled by the Israelites. Crossing the Jordan meant learning how to live in Canaan and enjoy its blessings. Crossing the Jordan meant the Israelites would have to live at a new level of faith. While they were in the desert, Moses' faith had carried the Israelites. Heeding God's call to free his people and lead them to Canaan, it was Moses who had tutored them in the knowledge of God. It was Moses and his faith that has sustained them at every critical test in the desert. Now Moses was dead, and there was a new leader, Joshua. Joshua was a warrior. It was his responsibility to lead the Israelites across the Jordan River and command them in their battles against Canaan's inhabitants. To conquer and keep the land God had promised them, the Israelites would now have to use their own faith in him as they followed Joshua. Once Canaan had been conquered, then each tribe would be given its own allotment of land. But what about those tribes that had chosen to not cross over the Jordan River? For whatever reason, they had decided that they liked the land on the east side of the river and wanted to claim that as their allotment. What happened to them? Well, they weren't excluded from either the battles or the blessings. In fact, they couldn't settle on their land until all of the tribes had conquered enough territory to be given their allotments. So Joshua agreed to the request of those 2.5 tribes, and the conquering of Canaan began. For my purposes of trying to understand this faith walk that God requires of each of us, finding manhole covers made by a company named East Jordan along a path I walk was comparable to sitting down and talking with Joshua. If I could have had that conversation, here's what I would have told him about what I'm learning about faith. First, a faith challenge always brings a lesson with it. I need to be vigilant and not miss the lesson because I'm tripping out over the situation that is requiring me to exercise faith. Second, the goal of every faith challenge is to bring me closer to God. At each challenge's end, I'm supposed to be trusting and believing God more than I did when it began. How is that possible? Because continuing to walk in faith during the challenge gives God the opportunity to prove that His Word is true and reliable. Walking in faith gives me the opportunity to experience that proof for myself. Third, The faith walk is best made step by step, for I can only go where I have enough faith to walk that day. Despite how rough and uneven the sidewalk might be, it's important that I keep moving, that I keep walking. When I reach the destination, I'll see that along the way my faith has grown. As a result, I'll be able to walk further the next time, or even toward a completely new destination. As faith markers, those manhole covers remind me to keep moving, keep walking. All I have to do is make it from one manhole cover to the next. If I keep doing that, I will eventually get home. It's the same with faith, I'm learning. All I have to do is trust and believe God today. Trust and believe Him during this particular test, and keep walking forward toward the next manhole cover. I like to think that Joshua would have approved of what I'm learning. May I encourage you to look for manhole covers along your walk? I hope you heard something today that has encouraged you and possibly given you something new to think about that will motivate or inspire you. If you would like a PDF copy of the show notes for this episode of Everyday Encouragement, Timeless Truths for Today, visit my website at jguypublisher.com. New episodes are published each week on Wednesday. I hope you'll join me for another installment of Everyday Encouragement, Timeless Truths for Today. Well, that's it for now. Until next time, be encouraged.